Hello again, and welcome to another adventure concept. It's about now in the process of writing these that I'm beginning to wonder whether I'll get these done in time. You'll see if I manage it in time for BlizzCon. My number 3 choice was Hellfire Citadel, a recent raid in WoW, but held back by it being released during one of WoW's least popular times. There's no nostalgia value. So, here is my concept for what I think could be the second most likely adventure if Blizz announce another during BlizzCon. It is widely regarded as one of the best raids ever produced in WoW, the Titan city and prison to the old god, Yogg'saron. Ulduar. Ulduar became a bastion of evil when Yogg'saron broke free of his cage and started to corrupt the inhabitants to great effect. The raid in WoW consists of 13 encounters, so I'd add another encounter with a boss that strongly connects to this raid. The first wing would be the Siege of Ulduar and contain 4 bosses. Hearthstone players will be familiar with the first, the Flame Leviathan. It'd be nice to get a nod towards the Leviathan's Hearthstone card in there, perhaps its hero power damaging all minions on the board every time it draws a card. In the WoW encounter, players needed to destroy 2 defense generators, which meant the Leviathan took increased damage for a short period. This could work similarly in Hearthstone. When the generators are destroyed, the boss takes double damage for 1 turn, a slight variation on Lotheb. If you want to know the Leviathan's lore, it was in the latest Lore of the Cards episode. Ignis the Furnace Master would be the second encounter. He is the giant responsible for crafting the many Iron Guardians of Ulduar. Perhaps his most iconic move was Slagpot, slag, where he would place a hero into the molten cauldron on his belly, burning them over time. In Hearthstone, this could be a pricey hero power, placing an enemy hero into a pot. This could burn them over time and prevent them from using hero-based abilities, including spell cards. Heroes would break out of the pot on one of their turns, allowing a small window to cast spells. Razor Scale, once the trusty mount of a later boss in the dungeon Thorin, would be your third encounter, now fused with Iron Plate, giving the Proto-Drake an unwavering defense. In WoW, players needed to fight waves of Iron Dwarves and fire harpoon cannons at Razor Scale to bring her to the ground and be able to strike at her. This could be echoed in Hearthstone, Razor Scale flying above with 5 armour. Her hero power would be Dwarven Drill, summoning 3 dwarves to the board. One of these adds could drop a harpoon, which on use did 5 damage to Razor Scale, bringing her to the ground for a turn to do damage to her. When she flew up again, her armour would double, requiring 2 harpoons to bring her down. Repeat until dead. The final encounter would be XT002 Deconstructor, a clockwork giant that believes itself the son of its creator, another later boss in Ulduar, which is why it behaves like a child. XT had an interesting mechanic which could be used to move him into his heroic mode. XT would expose its heart. If destroyed, it would become far more powerful. I'd quite like to see a play on this in Hearthstone, it being the boss's hero power. The player would lose either way if the heart lived or died, but would have to make a choice for which effect was less damaging for them at the time. The heart could perhaps do damage if destroyed, or give XT extra mana if it lived, for example. A possibility for XT's card would be to play off his Tantrum effect in WoW, giving an Inspire to deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. The second wing would be the Antechamber of Ulduar, containing the Assembly of Iron, Colligan and Eaja. Stormcaller Brundir, Runemaster Molgheim and Steelbreaker led the Iron armies of Ulduar. Since it's a multiple person boss, each individual would be represented in the Assembly of Iron encounter in Hearthstone. In the WoW encounter, each member of the Assembly became more powerful when one of the 3 of them died. It'd be a little dull to just give them a damage boost in Hearthstone, so it might be nice to increase the effectiveness of the card's abilities, perhaps causing Inspires to trigger twice, amplifying their effects, or giving even more effects. Colligan was constructed by Ignis to guard the inner chambers of Ulduar. In the Warcraft raid, players had to destroy his arms before attacking Colligan. On death, his arms would spawn earth elementals and would later respawn. The same mechanics could be translated to Hearthstone. Destroying Colligan's arm would summon a small group of easy to dispatch earth elementals, with Colligan's hero power being regrowth, bringing his arms back to the board. While the arms were up, Colligan would be immune. Eaja used to be the archivist of Ulduar, until Yogg'saron's corruption tore away all vestiges of her sanity. She now controls the inner sanctum, accompanied by her pets. Eaja would summon more and more cats as the fight progressed in WoW, the cats benefiting from the strength of the pack buff increasing their damage. Eaja's hero power could play on this, a cheap power summoning cats to the board that grow in strength the more of them there are. Her legendary could also play on the strength in numbers theme. When brought to the board, Eaja could summon 2 relatively weak cats that buff her, forcing the enemy hero to choose, to destroy her or her cats. We'd then move onto the Keepers of Ulduar ring. This is where I'd bring in the dungeon boss for a massive 5 encounter wing. It would consist of Loken, Mimiron, Hodere, Thorin and Freya. Loken is the dungeon boss, but a Titanic watcher like the other 4 in this wing. He was the chief jailer entrusted by the Titans to look over Yogg'saron, and the first to be corrupted by the old god. Loken's dungeon mechanics were relatively simple, punishing groups that stacked up in WoW, so expect to see a lot of AoE in his Hearthstone deck. With his hero power, it may be more fun to focus on Loken's lore, Dark Whispers, driving Loken to commit a random horrific act, maybe constructing an iron army or lashing out at the enemy hero to damage them, maybe, on rare occasions, hurting himself. Mimiron's encounter almost has to be phased. In WoW, the brilliant inventor, responsible for creating XT002 and Flame Leviathan, made use of 3 different machines. The Leviathan Mark II, VX001, a stationary turret, and his aerial command unit, a threat from above. For the last stage of the fight, these would all combine together to form Voltron. In the final stage, Mimiron's hero power could be Mega Wind Fury, allowing him to attack 4 times with a weapon, much like Voltron's Hearthstone card. The Frozen Hodere would be the 3rd encounter, once the ruler of the Frost Giants, now a servant to Yogg'saron's will. Hodere was an ice-themed encounter and required players to have a lot of frost resistance back in the day in WoW. His hall was also filled with frozen adventurers that could be freed. It'd be nice if this encounter centred around this. The player could be given a few hero cards that makes Hodere's encounter a little easier. Hodere's hero power Flash Freeze would freeze enemy minions and kill any still frozen. The 3rd encounter would be Thorin, the Titanic Watcher with mastery over lightning. Thorin was once at war with the Frost Giants of Northrend, believing they killed his wife. Upon the discovery that it was Loken, Loken ensnared him and dragged him to Ulduar, where Yogg'saron corrupted him. In his Warcraft encounter, Thorin is an arena-based fight. Half the raid needed to stay in an arena fighting adds, while the others ran through a gauntlet to confront Thorin. Upon being reached, Thorin himself would enter the fight. His encounter could consist of a gauntlet phase and a fight with the boss himself. During the first phase, Thorin's hero power could be Stormhammer, throwing his hammer for moderate damage. In the second phase, his hero power could be Lightning Charge, automatically applying each round and increasing the potency of his lightning abilities. The final boss of this wing would be Freya, the Titanic Watcher with healing powers. Once the defender of all living things, her chamber is still filled with an abundance of life, but Yogg'saron's corruption was still able to take over her thoughts. Fitting with her powers, Freya's hero power would be Touch of Eonar, healing her for huge amounts of damage, even more if certain minions are out on the board. The trick would be in finding ways of numbing the effectiveness of Freya's hero power, so that she does not just heal her whole life total in a single turn. Her legendary card could play on this theme, healing your hero for more the more minions on the board, making her synergise nicely with Zoo and Murloc decks. None of the Titanic Watchers actually die in Ulduar. Loken does, but he's technically not in the raid, and this was because he was too corrupted to save. Perhaps to add extra difficulty, players also fail if they kill the Watchers, having to leave them on 1 health or fail. The final wing would be the Descent into Madness, which I think would be cool if it looked to only contain 2 bosses, General Vezax and Yogg'saron. General Vezax is one of the mightiest commanders of the Faceless Ones race, servants to the old gods. In the adventure, Vezax's hero power could be Mark of the Faceless, which latches onto a minion. This could work in 2 ways, slowly siphoning health off the minion and healing Vezax, or healing him every time the minion attacked. In WoW, Mark of the Faceless works more like the first iteration, siphoning health from the players. The second boss would be Yogg'saron himself. Like all final bosses in WoW, there is so much to this fight, so I would love to hear some of your thoughts on what you'd do with it. As a lore fan, I'd like to focus on the 3 memories presented by Yogg'saron during the fight, finding ways of blending the stories shown into a Hearthstone battle. The first memory depicts Garona Half-Orcan slaying King Lane Rin, the event which caused the Orcs to win the first war. This could maybe transform both heroes, Yogg becoming Lane and Yu becoming Garona, moving on to the next phase when Lane dies. The second memory shows the dragon aspects creating the Dragon Soul, a hugely powerful artifact that would be turned against them by Deathwing. This could be just as simple as spawning all the aspects on Yogg's side of the board. That would be truly terrifying. The last memory shows the Lich King torturing Bolvar, trying to transform him into a Death Knight. Again, this could change the heroes and be timed, the player having to keep their Bolvar avatar alive over a certain period of time, let's say 5 turns. I'm nicking my idea for a Yogg legendary from Fuller's Games, almost wholesale. I encourage you to watch his card concepts on Yogg on his channel. When Yogg is played, he causes all minions on the board to attack a random target. This can include minions on the same side. Ulduar also had a hidden boss, and I think it'd be cool to have a hidden boss in this adventure too, perhaps linking to my 1 health Titan Watcher idea, only unlocking if you manage to defeat them all with them still on 1 health. This boss would be Algalon the Observer, who was sent to Azeroth after Loken's death. Algalon was sent to observe Azeroth and see if it was necessary to reorder the world, which would destroy all the inhabitants on the planet. This could be a race against time. If Algalon hits 10 mana, he casts his hero power, Failsafe, which destroys the entire board and the enemy hero. Players would get another legendary after defeating him, with an Inspire mechanic that operates like a Doomsayer, but leaving Algalon alive. This might be a bit broken. So, why do I think Ulduar is the second most likely? Firstly, it'd go down really well with the WoW part of the Hearthstone community, it being such a popular raid. It would also give the Hearthstone team the opportunity to print more Titan and Old God themed cards, which there aren't that many of in Hearthstone at the moment. There's only one reason this loses out to number 1. That beautiful thing called cross-promotion. So, join me next time as we enter the lair of the Betrayer. I really hope you enjoyed. Subscribe and all that YouTube bollocks. If you enjoyed the art, I've linked all the artists that I could find in the description below. Happy Hearthstoning, guys.